I have something I want to tell you today, and it's one of the things I struggle with, and it is called anxiety. And I don't know about you, but I've met a lot of people who struggle with anxiety, especially when situations are spiraling out of control and they feel like nothing is perfect, nothing is going how they planned. Um, and it is really hard. I'm a little bit of a control freak, or I'm a recovering control freak. I've kind of started to realize that maybe God's in control more than I am. And so I am so pleased to bring on a good friend of mine, Diane Passey, and she is going to do a presentation today that's going to help us with anxiety and perfectionism. But let me introduce her first, and then I'll give you the name of her topic, okay? So, Diane Passey is a Christian wife, mom of 7, and grandmother of 6. As a speaker, podcaster, and certified coach, she works with moms who have ADHD and anxious teens to help them find success, feel peace, and foster connection. Over the past 6 years, Diane has coached over 1,000 clients using her signature system, emotional resilience grounded in scripture, using humor and sincere love. You can find out more about Diane on her website, www.dianepassey.com, and we'll be sure to link her in the show notes today, and on social media at Diane Passey. Diane, thanks for coming on today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. This is a great topic and one that I think most of us struggle with. That at some point or another, we just like this brings on so much anxiety. We have such a desire to be good, and I love being able to talk about this. So thank you for asking.
Oh, well, I'm excited. Okay, guys, drum roll. Here is the topic for tonight, and I'm going to bring up her presentation as I do this. It is 3 ways to shift from anxious perfectionism to authentic peace. Oh my gosh, I don't know about you, but I am looking forward to this presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane and let her kick it off. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you, Tamara. I am a recovering perfectionist. So this is something that I have worked through and am constantly working through myself. That so many of us have this need and desire to be a perfectionist, and it causes us some anxiety. And so, how do we kind of go from that space of what I title here as anxious perfectionism to a place of just really being able to feel that authentic peace? And I'm going to give you 3 steps to do that today. I coach and I've worked with a lot of people, and a lot of different things cause anxiety. And I see little bits and pieces through through different people and different clients. But I'll tell you what I do, what I see, what the common thread is for probably 90% of them. And of all the different reasons that we can feel anxiety, the common thread is perfectionism. We just have a desire to be able to do more, be more. There's so many different ways that we can compare ourselves to other people. Social media has done a great job being able to expose us to the lives of those around us. And things are not always as they seem. And as we strive to just fit in and belong and be like those around us, we often fall into this trap of perfectionism. I used to be a very proud perfectionist, and I had heard this. A neighbor had said this, like, saying from a neighbor, and I was like, this is the best saying ever. And the saying was, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. And I was like, she's right. Like, if I'm going to put my time into doing something, I'm going to make sure that it's not just done, but it is overdone. Like, I want people to think that when they ask me to do something, man, I'm going to blow it out of the water, and it is going to be fantastic. So in my quest to become this anything worth doing is overdoing, I really fell into this trap of perfectionism. Let me tell you a little bit more of how that happened in just a minute. What we want to be able to feel is this peace. We want to be able to have these emotions here that really are associated with that authentic piece. Just being able to love ourselves, enjoy our life, the things that we are doing and how we are accomplishing, and just to live in the moment. So I'm going to help you get there with these three steps. Let's first define perfectionism. So perfectionism is people who strain compulsively and unremittingly towards impossible goals, and who measure their own worth entirely in terms of productivity and accomplishment. So that's how one person has identified it. And a second person has identified it as setting of excessively high standards for performance, accompanied by overly critical self-evaluations. And oftentimes, especially when I'm working with teens, we really have to kind of separate the difference between perfectionism and wanting to just achieve. Like, it's just being able to be happy with just achieving what you can achieve. And it just kind of depends. It just kind of depends on the situation. But perfectionism, you'll never be happy with how you do. It'll never be enough. I really love Brene Brown's work on perfectionism. And if you haven't read her book, Gifts of Imperfection, the Gifts of Imperfection, oh my gosh, fantastic. That was really what started my journey with realizing that I was really in a downward spiral, and perfectionism was at the root of it. So here is how Brene Brown defines perfectionism. Perfectionism is not the same thing as striving to be your best. Perfectionism is the belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, we can minimize or avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. It's a shield. It's a 20-ton shield that we lug around thinking it will protect us, when in fact, it is the thing that is really preventing us from flight. So when I often ask people, I want you to picture this 20-ton shield. This 20-ton shield is just right in front of you, and you're hiding behind it. And you have to make sure that anyone who sees you or points your direction or might recognize, who you are, you've got to show them the shield of what you think they want to see. Because perfectionism isn't really about who we are personally as much as who we want to be perceived. We want to be perceived as perfect. We want to be perceived that we've got it all together. We want to be perceived that anything worth doing is worth overdoing, and that we are these amazing people. We don't necessarily feel that way. In fact, behind it is our shriveled up little sense of self sometimes, or a diminished sense of self that's like, I'm just not good enough. Yet on the outside, we want to be seen as good enough. So the first thing we're going to do is understand why our brain kind of goes into this perfectionistic mode, and what it has to do with anxiety. All right, so I'm going to teach you a little bit of brain science for a second, and just bear with me. This is how I teach all of my clients, and so it might feel a little basic, but it's actually information that I think everybody should know. So we're going to talk about two different parts of the brain. The first part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex. And you can see that it's represented here by this thoughtful turtle. I love his little peace sign that's sitting right there. And he's just chilling, meditating. It's represented by a turtle because it is slow, it is methodical, it is logical, and it's where we want to spend the most of our time is in this part of our brain. It helps you to make smart choices and think before you act, set goals and make plans, problem solve, find solutions, recognize and understand your emotions, and then be able to regulate them. And then you're treating yourself and others with kindness. And if that's where you are, then you are in this prefrontal cortex part of your brain. Again, only humans have it, and it really regulates. It regulates so much of our life. You'll see on our next slide here that we have two little almond-shaped glands in our brain called the amygdala, and they kind of cause all kinds of habit. We're grateful that we have our amygdala. It protects us. Its job is to keep us safe. However, it gets a little bit excited and gets a little bit overactive. So our amygdala is the protective part of our brain. It watches out for anything that might harm us. It tries to protect us and keep us safe. It prepares our body for fight, flight, and flight, fright. Oh my goodness. Fight, flight, and freeze stress responses, and it creates big emotions. And I think there's two really important things to know about the amygdala is that one of them is that it's going to shut down your prefrontal cortex when it's activated. So if you think about it like this, if I have a cougar running down the street and he's going to like eat me, I don't need to be making goals, thinking, regulating my emotions, figuring out what I'm going to do for dinner, problem solving, right? Like that is not going to serve me. I need to just go right into fight, flight, freeze and do whatever it is that's going to protect me and keep me safe. And so the job of amygdala when it comes to keeping us safe is really to shut that down, and it shuts down a lot of our major systems and organs. So our immune system, our digestive system, parts of our body that we don't need to be using at that moment if our life is in danger. And that's really what the amygdala is doing, is protecting us when our life is in danger. What is interesting about it is our second part that I want you to really remember is that our brain hasn't evolved as fast as our society has evolved. So this part of our brain that really kept us safe from external dangers, like enemies and wild animals and things like that really, really helped us to survive as a species, can't tell the difference between real and imagined danger. So what that means is that my brain is going to react the same way to when I am feeling anxious, overwhelmed, perfectionist, any of those. My brain is going to react like I'm in danger the same way as if I had a bear that came and attacked me. It can't decipher the difference between that. So we have to learn how to recognize and decipher the difference between, is this thing really going to hurt me? Am I really, truly in danger? Or is this something that my amygdala is just kind of triggered by, and maybe sometimes even get stuck a little bit in this, thinking that I'm going to die. I'm not really going to die. I just was asked to do this thing that I don't want to do. For some reason, my amygdala thinks it is not safe. When our amygdala is triggered, we go into fight, flight, stress response. And I'm just going to cover these really quick because I just want you to recognize what it is that, why it is that you may be feeling the way you feel. So our fight stress response, you can see we have two things here, you and the danger. You're going to move towards the danger. So that looks like yelling, screaming, using mean words, biting, kicking, fighting. Like hopefully we don't bite. Like this is done for elementary school kids. But punching, we don't take responsibility. We're very defensive. We make demands, talk back. And what it looks like, or what it feels like, is irritable, angry, furious. You're going, right? You're ready to you're aggressive and you're offended. Our flight stress response looks more like we want to run away. It's hard to pay attention and focus because your brain is like, you got to get out of here. I see a lot of flight in my coaching practice where I'll even watch these teenagers that I work with. I'll watch their eyes like dart to the door of my office, or because their brain is like, oh, you're not safe. She's going to make you start talking about feelings, or she's going to dig into this sensitive area. And so it's hard to focus and pay attention. You'll feel fidgety and restless and hyperactive. You can feel really preoccupied and want to avoid situations. And it feels like anxiety, panic, scared, worried, and overwhelmed. So a lot of us that feel anxiety from perfectionism, we are in our body. Our body is in flight mode because our brain is telling us that something isn't safe. The last stress response we're going to cover is freeze. And what this looks like is your mind goes blank, hard to think. You want to isolate, be alone. You don't want to talk or respond to others. It's hard to get things done. Some of us go into this like hold your phone shell mode where, we've got the shield around ourselves, trying to protect ourselves and just not wanting to be there. And it feels more like depressed, numb, bored, apathetic, which means you don't really care about things either way, helpless and zoned out. So you'll see that if you've ever seen like the video of somebody encountering a bear at Yellowstone or something, and you'll see that they just hold still. Their brain knows that they just need to hold still, and the bear's just going to go sniff them and move past them. But but that's just an example of us going into freeze mode. And if that's the way our brain thinks we're going to be safe, that's what it's going to do. So what we want to identify is, what is your brain trying to protect you from? So if I know that my prefrontal cortex has been shut down, my amygdala is active, and maybe I'm in flight mode. I want to just escape. I don't want to be there. My heart is racing. I'm feeling anxious. Why am I feeling anxious? It's I'm in protective mode. What is my brain trying to protect you from? Well, let me tell you a little bit about my family. This many years ago, this was about 10, 11 years ago. My youngest is right here, the little baby. My oldest here, Brandon, is he was about 15 years old at this mode. And I am in full perfection mode here, wanting to come across like I was not overwhelmed. I did not have too many kids. I knew what I was doing. We were pulling it together. Everything was fine. And because of comments that people had made to me, and I assumed that everybody just thought she's crazy. Like, who has 7 kids? Like, nobody has 7 kids. Does she not? Does she not know how to stop that? And like, there were just some comments that were made to me that were really, really hurtful. And I figured that everyone was judging me. So I needed to show up being as perfect as possible so that people would think that I had it all together, and they would think that I was a good enough mom, and that I was able to take care of these kids, and I was doing all right on my own, and that this was not a mistake. And look how good I am. Look how worthy I am. I had all these kids, and I have worth and value because I can do all of these things with these kids. Well, if you don't have 7 kids, you can probably imagine the chaos and how hard it was for me to try and keep everybody together and looking like we had it all together, looking like that we were going to be this typical, Christian, perfect family that was trying to do all the things right. And I was crumbling inside. I was struggling so much, and my mental health really started to take a dive. I really started to suffer from anxiety and depression. And at times just became where I just couldn't do anything and couldn't function. And when I started reaching out for help and started getting the help I need, I realized that the root of it was I was so worried and spending so much time trying to show up, holding that 20-ton shield in front of me, lugging it around, using all the strength that I had to make sure that people saw me and my family the way I wanted them to see me and my family, instead of what was really going on, that I had burned myself out and that things had become a kind of out of control mentally and for my mental health. So the word that I'm going to teach you a power word that's going to go with each of these tips. So the word that goes with this first tip, with the brain science one, is authenticity. It was really important for me to start to learn how to show up authentic with my family, with my kids, with the situation that I was in, kind of overwhelmed, kind of with a lot going on. I needed to learn how to be authentic and be okay with the mess. At the time, I was struggling to pretend like the mess wasn't there, I guess, or I was dealing with the mess behind my 20-ton shield, and I needed to learn what it was like to just show up authentic. And I kind of started experimenting as I was getting this therapy and this coaching, kind of experimenting with, well, what if I show up and things are not all put together? What if I show up and things are not as perfect as I would like them to be? What happens? And I found out that I started making connections with people, and people they would laugh together about it, and they would relate to me. And instead of judging me and criticizing me like I thought they would, they actually really appreciated that authentic side of me. And I had this gift of being able to connect with people authentically when I showed up as myself and not showed up how I thought they wanted me to show up. So that's our first word that I want you to remember, is we show up authentically. And what does that look like for you? How is it that you can show authenticity in your life? And what is it that you need to do? It's going to scare you to death when you start thinking of showing up authentically, And with authenticity, it's super scary because you do worry about the judgment that will come, and will it bring shame and blame, and what are people going to think? But really what it brings is connection and love and peace, and it really like helps our mental health be able to, we're just like, it helps relieve some of that anxiety and depression, helps us to be able to show up the way that God meant for us to show up. He knows that we're messy. He knows that we're figuring this out, and it's okay. And when people see that, hey, Diane over there, she's barely holding it together, or wow, did you see her son wear sweatpants and tennis shoes and two different color socks, true story, to church, and his hoodie that he, with his hood on, like, I wouldn't have never been able to let that go. But somehow that helps me be able to connect with other people because I'm real. And being real is really what Heavenly Father and what God really wanted us to be. Our second tip is to check your ruler. A coach that I was working with, her name's Rachel. She was like, Diane, you are carrying around this huge 6-foot board with you. She said, so here's what I want you to do. She said, I want you to go to Home Depot and I want you to go get one of those big 10-foot long boards. I don't know how long they are, but she said, I want you to go get that, and you have to take it with you wherever you go. You got to take it in the car with you. You got to take it to church. You got to take it to the grocery store. She's like, so that is your assignment. I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm not gonna take a board. But she's like, that's what you're doing. You've got this ruler that you are comparing yourself way up here to what you think your expectations should be and where they should be, and you're doing it already. She's like, so you might as well just carry around a real board with you because you're not willing to put down the ruler and let yourself just be where you are. So what does your ruler look like? What expectations are you holding yourself to that maybe are out of reach and aren't realistic expectations? I love this little example of the perfectionist scale, because we see, we got the perfectionist scale, good, very good, excellent. And then we have the perfectionist that goes along a little bit more than excellent. So I have a client that I work with, and she is a high performing student. I would say she's one of those that just top of class. And I see this a lot in teenagers. A lot of these kids that really struggle with perfectionism, they are the top end of their class. So in her math class, they have a quiz that they take every week. And the quiz kind of just goes over whatever it is that they have learned for the week. So on that quiz, if you get there, they have the range where you get ABC, or whatever. So the range for A is, between 93 and 100. If she gets 100% on the quiz, then she gets a star. The teacher puts a star on her paper. If so it's not just getting an A, she has to have 100%. She strives and like mentally and emotionally wears herself out wanting to get that star so bad. It's not good enough for her just to get an A on it. She wants it to be perfect and get the star on it. And she does whatever it takes and studies for however long she needs to in order to be able to get the star. That's a great example of somebody who is not just striving for excellence, but someone who is going a little bit too far and is trying to be perfect. She will tell me, well, because what will people think? People expect her to be that kind of like overachiever. They expect her to get the star on her math paper and to get the lead in the play and to be able to do all of these things. So why, if she doesn't meet that, what are they going to think of her? What are they going to think if she's just an A student? If she doesn't go above and beyond everything that she does. We just hold ourselves to such a scale that when we don't reach that perfectionist level, we are critical and hard on ourselves. A perfectionist will never be able to feel happy and peace about their progress because they think they should always do more. If they do accomplish something, then they're like, well, obviously that wasn't hard enough. There will be a reason that they accomplished it. It was because they didn't push themselves enough, or they didn't work hard enough. And so they set these goals that are not reachable. And then when they don't reach them, they beat themselves up. They are not very kind to themselves mentally. Where when we're striving for excellence, we're okay in this very good, excellent range. I like to encourage my clients to be a B-. When we're a B- range, for those of us who are perfectionists, B- really for a lot of other people, it's their A's. So we strive for a B minus level of doing good enough, of doing what we can do. And when we achieve that level, then we celebrate. We are excited about that level. We cheer ourselves on, and we feel content because we reached a goal, and that goal was a good goal for us. And we're going to set another goal that is within reach. That is something that we can do that can push us still a little bit, but does not go beyond that excellent standard that we have. I want you to think and look back. I love this picture of this little boy just has so much joy in his face. So look back at your past successes and the things that you have done, and think of the things that you have done right, that you have accomplished. So when you kind of scan back, let's just even scan back over the last year or last 2 years, if you need to go that far back, and look at what you have done and what you have accomplished, and just take a minute and be grateful and just feel so proud of all the things that you have done and that you have accomplished. Maybe you set your bar. Maybe you were like me and you were carrying around that big 6-foot ruler, or you're hiding behind that 20-ton shield. But when we're in that mode, we're not looking at the things we have accomplished. We're not looking at the steps and the leap and even the baby steps, whether it's a baby step or a huge leap forward. We're not looking at those. We're looking at the ways that we're deficient, that we didn't show up, that we weren't good enough. And yet, if we really look at our lives and we really comb through it and we look at it from an outside perspective and from God's perspective, we see that we have done great things, and we will continue to do great things because we continue to take one more step forward. The power of yet can really help us with this. And this little poster here where I can't do this yet, this doesn't work yet, I don't know yet, it doesn't make sense yet, I don't get it yet, and I'm not good at this yet. But you can be. We have another day, another try. We have not only our whole lifetimes, but we have an eternity to be able to work through and understand and learn and grow. The power of yet opens up that ability for us to keep going when it feels like we're just not good, and we're just not going to get it, and we're just not capable, and we start being really hard on ourselves. That's kind of where we will be when we are not in the power of yet, and we don't recognize and understand what it is that we really can accomplish. So the word for this tip number 2 is self-compassion. Being compassionate with yourself for where you are. Put down the 6-foot, 10-foot ruler, put down the 20-ton shield. Love yourself because you've accomplished great things and you've done great things, and be super compassionate towards yourself. If you are saying things in your brain, or your brain is spinning thoughts that you would not say to a little sister, or to one of your children, or to the cute little boy on the playground, or anyone else, if it's not a thought that you would tell, but that you would say to them, don't say it to yourself. So we don't say things to other people, like we don't say things to ourselves that we wouldn't be willing to tell a child or to tell a little kid. And so that's the kind of self-compassion that we're looking for. We're looking for, hey, I'm not supposed to have this yet. It is supposed to be a mess right now. I knew it would be a mess. And before I even chose to come here, I knew it was going to be a mess. It is a mess, and it's okay. And I'm still lovable. I am still have worth and value. And having that compassion for yourself because you're doing the best you can. So our first word for tip number 1 was authenticity. The second word is self-compassion. The third area, the third step that we're going to work on is that you are enough. We have a lot of voices that tell us that we are not enough and that we will never be enough. And I'm going to give you this tip here that's going to help you slide out of that. You are not enough. We have 2 states of being that we can be in, and we can be in them at any one time. So one state of being is fear, scarcity, and the not enough state of being. The other state is the love, abundance, and that you are enough. A lot of us think that we can put one foot in one circle, one foot in the other circle, but it doesn't work that way. We are either in the fear, scarcity, not enough circle, or in the love, abundance, and enough. Well, scientists looked to see what it was that we could do. What's the fastest way, because that's how we work, right? What's the fastest and easiest way for us to get from a state of fear, scarcity, and not feeling enough over to a state of love, abundance, and enough? And what they discovered was gratitude. Now, when I first heard this, I was like, it's pretty early on in my striving to be an imperfect person journey. And I thought, wait a minute. I thought gratitude was something that they taught in Bible stories. I thought that gratitude was a churchy thing. Like, I can't believe these scientists are coming up with gratitude as a solution from being able to get from your brain in one state to move it over to the other state. But sure enough, the more research I did and the more I looked into it, this wasn't just a religious thing. This was something that was scientifically based, that gratitude is the fastest way to get feeling better, feeling like you're not enough to feeling like you're enough. I had this client who texted me from her job one afternoon, and she was stuck in that imperfection, or in that perfectionistic mode, was being very hard on herself. And she just was like, Diane, I don't think I can make it through my shift here. So I had her pull out, she was a cashier at a health store, and I had her pull out this receipt and turn it around on the back where it was blank. And I had her start writing gratitudes. And I said, I want you to have 50 gratitudes by the time that your shift ends. And so she would start writing gratitudes, anything that she was grateful for. And she would just write until she was about halfway through her shift. About 2 hours after she had contacted me. And she was like, I am feeling so much better. I didn't get through 50. Is it okay if I stop? And I was like, yes, of course. It's okay if you stop. But that was the one thing that helped her be able to get through the rest of her shift and to be able to get that brain to calm down a little bit. I have a teen client he's a sophomore right now. And he texted me from his school class just saying, Diane, like, I can't be here. Like, I am feeling so much anxiety. He was totally in flight mode. He's like, I can't think. I just want to escape. I just want to leave. And I started trying different strategies, the strategies that we had been working on together in our different sessions. And it was gratitude that finally helped his brain to switch. When I said, I want you to list 5 things that you're grateful for. And he started listing the sun and Jesus Christ and the mountains and green grass. I was like, oh, those are great. Give me another 5. And he kept listing. And by the time he got to 15, he said that his anxiety had gone from a level 8 out of 10 down to a level 6. And that is a much more a logical place to be, where you can start kind of saying, okay, now let's think this through clearly. My job always with teenagers is I want to keep them in school. I want to keep them in class and help teach them the coping skills to get through. Gratitude is very, very powerful. Brene Brown tells us that practicing gratitude is how we acknowledge that there's enough and we are enough. We're in that abundance space, that everything is going to be okay, that we're going to be able to make it through. And who we are today is totally enough. So that is our third word that we're going to remember that goes with this is gratitude. So number 1 is authenticity. Number 2 is self-compassion. And number 3 is gratitude. This is a fairly recent picture of my family. It's from about a year ago. There is a lot of dynamics from this family. When you compare this family to that family that picture that I showed you before, where my oldest was 15, my youngest was just a baby. Now everybody has grown. We've got marriages, we've had divorce, we have babies, we have mental health issues. We've gone through a lot, and there's a lot of very tricky dynamics that are in this family picture right here. I appreciate so much being able to look at this family picture and look at it in a way of, this is authentically who we are. You can see, look at all the grandkids here. I think this is really funny. All the grandkids are looking grumpy or not looking away. We got one little happy grandkid there. It was really hot this day and everybody was grumpy. So we barely made it through this picture. So we got all the grandkids like upset, and we got, the adults like, Mom, this is like, why are we standing in this horse-filled pasture? And this is such a dumb idea, and everything. but I love that it's authentic. And when I look at this and I think, okay, this family has a different dynamic than I thought it would. People have made different choices. They are taking their own paths, and I did the best I could. And I practice having that self-compassion to tell myself that, you know what, this is messy and it's very much a messy middle, and it's okay for me to have that. And I practice gratitude, at least for one day. We were all able to be at the same place at the same time. It was 100 degrees and it wasn't a stinky horse pasture, but we were able to be together and take this picture to remember how imperfect our family was, and to remember the imperfections that make this family beautiful, that makes it whole, and that has helped us learn how to love better, love more, and to be okay. And I am so grateful for that. All right, so the 3 words that we went through today, we have authenticity, self-compassion, and gratitude. Again, be authentic and show up as who you are. Just experiment with it. See what happens. Pick a little area in your life that you're feeling like you can expose that. Put down that shield for a second and expose who you really are and see what happens. That's self-compassion. Don't say anything to anybody that you would don't say anything to yourself that you would not say to a little sibling or a little sister or somebody that you really love and care about. And the third is to practice gratitude. I recommend 3 gratitudes, at least 3 gratitudes in a journal, on your phone. If we write them down, they tend to be a little more powerful than verbally expressing them or just thinking them in your head. But and oftentimes when people are in a really hard space, I will have them start just listing. I want you to list 100 gratitudes between now and next week when you come in, and watch the way that your brain is able to change. And you can start feeling like, hey, you know what? I am good enough. Of course, we are wanting to always be better. We are women who have this divine desire to be amazing, to be tools in God's hands, to raise up families, or to be the most powerful person that we can be in helping to speak up for what really matters. We have that desire, and sometimes we get frustrated at our inability to be as perfect as we would like to be. And yet, so much of the growth and the beauty comes in imperfections. I love the phrase in the scriptures that beauty from ashes. Like, God can take that messy middle. He can take all of the stress and our mistakes and all of those things and turn it into something beautiful. And when we have to rely on God and His grace and the love that He has for us, then we know that everything ends up working out in the end. On this last slide here, excuse me, you can see how the different places that you can reach me on social media. And I have a podcast episode that I did on ADHD, anxiety, and toxic perfectionism that delves a little bit more into some of the different things about perfectionism and ways that you can recognize it. And not only how you can help yourself, but how you can help your teens with that. So you're welcome to look that up. It's episode 17. You can find this podcast on any podcast platform. And if you have any questions, always reach out to me and I'm happy to help you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Diane. This is so fun. I'm glad that you're able to do that. And I have a question though.
Yes.
As somebody who struggles with that anxiety still, you mentioned that your coach said, or you coach people and you say, I want you to aim for a B-.
Okay, does that make you cringe, Tamara?
Yes. Okay, here's a funny story. Yes. When I was in college, I remember I was pregnant and I was nauseous like all get out. And my husband said, we were pregnant with our first, and I was kind of going into my last full semester of college, and I had a paper that I had to write, and I was just feeling crummy as all get out. And my husband's like, what grade do you have in this class right now? An A. Okay, this paper that you're doing, if you get a C on it, what grade will you get in the class? and he's like, and I said, uh, probably an A.
Mhm.
And he's like, so write a C paper and turn it in. And I'm like, but I don't know how to write a C paper. Do you know what I mean? And so I guess,
Totally no.
sorry, that I'm just throwing that out there because when you said, Tamara, be a B minus and aim for that, I'm like, how?
How do you even do
How
that?
do you even
Well,
like? So I'm sorry to like. I know you finished a nice little presentation, but
no,
I'm gonna
no.
throw this out there as like a real question because I'm like,
I love this question, and it really is like a real thing to be able to jump from being that A to a C. And we have to look at this with a little bit of, let's go back and where did we get that mindset from? Where did we get that we had to have an A to be good enough, that everything had to be turned in or done at this like perfectionism, level in order to be good enough? And for so many of us, it was cultivated in schools. The kids who were the top achievers, the kids who were who were the best of the best, they're the ones that got the awards and the recognition and the scholarships. So our brain learned from a young age that if you perform like this and you do this level of work, you get the star on your paper. I'm going to put your handwriting up on the board, and we're going to like show everybody how great you are. And so it's a learned behavior that we have for a lot of us. I think one of the things, I have a couple things in my life that kind of changed the way that I view some of these, this B minus. I have a daughter who just super perfectionist, and was mentally, her mental health was just crummy because of it. And when she went to college, and again, like just like you were saying, had this perfectionist thing, we were like, okay, look, you have got to figure out and break this A streak that you have at school. So we told her that we would throw a party for her if she got a C in one of her classes. And it took about a month and a half of like convincing her to get the C, because that stress of maintaining all A's was killing her. So she stopped turning it. So she missed one test intentionally. She stopped turning in a couple papers, and she got a C in the class. And it was okay. Like nothing bad happened. She was still went to school. She still got her degrees. Everything was okay. So much of it is a mental game, and so much of it comes from where we were raised and the values in our home, and who we decided we had to become. One of the things that I think that helps, if you're one of those people that just really feels like you have to always achieve, is to remember that your B minus is everybody else's A's. And the things that you're letting go, the things that you're dropping, are things that nobody notices. So I have a handful of things that were imperfect in my little presentation that I saw as I was going through, and thought, oh, I missed that, or oh, that should have been like a little smaller or something. And yet the people who are watching this, you might have a few people that notice, but most likely nobody is going to have noticed in my presentation how imperfect it was. And that's just not what they're looking for. If you are somebody who's walking around looking for other people's imperfections, you're not a very mentally healthy person. Like, I can't imagine doing that. And so realizing that we can get away with a B minus, and people won't know. They just don't know any different. And so when we allow things to drop, when we intentionally, so Tamara, like one of the things I do in my work is I will say, okay, I could take 2 hours to make this, let's say this presentation, but I'm actually only going to give myself 60 minutes. And when it's done at 60 minutes, it's done. And that means there's going to be things that are not, that maybe don't all align perfectly. There's going to be graphics that might not look like I want them to look, but I'm going to force myself to work within this time constraint, because I'm going for a B minus. And it's something that I have told myself now for 10 years, every single day, a B minus. I am going for B minus. A B minus is good enough. My worth is not dependent on grades. It's not dependent on perfectionism. B minus, B minus, B minus. So I've said that so many times to myself that it's a lot more natural now than it used to be, where at first I was like, oh, if I get a B minus, I am grounded for a semester. Like there was consequences when I was growing up of doing that. And then recognizing where a lot of that comes from is pretty toxic. My youngest two kids have learning disabilities and some different neurodivergent struggles. And because of that, the amount of work that they put into a lot of their assignments is equal to and sometimes greater than the amount of work that some of my older kids had that flew through school. And when I watched that and I saw that the amount of work and how much they were putting into their assignments, and that they were, even if they were equal, the older kids were getting A's and top of class. These two kids, they're going to be, we hope that they graduate, right? I'm seeing all of the letters of the alphabet, and that's okay. And I really had to change my mindset about that, because if I stressed out about pushing them the same way I pushed myself when I was that age, that I'm creating in another generation of kids the need to be perfect, and that need to have to strive for a level that is really not good. It's not never worth mental health. Like our need and desire to overperform, it's never, whatever it is, never worth our mental health. That's a high, steep price to pay. And we're seeing a generation of kids that have been raised in a system that is like that. It's why I've got a job in a lot of ways, is because these kids get sick and they get all kinds of like physical ailments as well as their mental health. And it's because they feel like that's what they need to do in order to be okay. And if they're going to change that behavior, we have to model it for them as their parents, and as women who have influence in our society.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Thank you for talking me through that, because I was like, how?
Like, what? So you ought to just try. Like, sometimes I'll say, okay, so this, tomorrow at school, I want you to intentionally wear your shirt inside out. And people will be like, what? And I'm like, no, just go with it. Or two totally different socks. Or two totally different shoes. Like, I'm like, I want you to do something that is against your grain, that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And just watch what happens. Just see what happens. And so we intentionally make ourselves uncomfortable by doing less than what is expected of us, and what we think is expected of us. And we kind of push it. We have to like really push ourselves into that uncomfortable space of the B- effort, and the B- result is enough.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that and for answering my question, because
you bet.
I know I'm not the only one out there that struggles with.
Oh my gosh. Really, it's like most of what I see, and I understand it's where I've been, and where I will be a recovering perfectionist for forever, because it's just, I think it's just a part of who we are. So
yeah. It reminded me, and I think this is a good thought to close on, when we had our Women Warriors of Light virtual launch. One of the ladies, Tiffany Fletcher, that was presenting, she said, we often do this equation in our brain where we feel that us plus being perfect helps us be able to approach Jesus. And she goes, we've got it backwards. She goes, us plus Jesus helps us equal.
Oh, that's so good.
And I thought, you know what, when you put it that way, we're looking at the equation all wrong. And I think the adversary wants us to look at
totally
wrong, that
totally.
I can't approach Jesus because I've done this and made this mistake, and look at my family, and look at my past, and he can't take me how I am. And I'm not perfect, so I'm never going to be able to approach Jesus. When the truth is, we approach Jesus because we are broken. And because he is our savior, he does exactly what that title suggests. He saves us and helps us become perfect in him.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I love the thought of, really putting the savior in the equation. Because really, could we do any of this? Is any of this really going to matter without the savior? Like, none of us. We all messed up by the time we were however old. By the time we could walk and talk and make decisions. Like, we have to have the savior in that equation. That's so good. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, well, it felt like it tied in to kind of wrap this nice little presentation up. And so thank you so much for sharing this. I know it's something that I needed, and I'm going to practice being authentic, having self-compassion, and gratitude.
Oh, you got it. Way to go. You got it. You got it, Tamara.
Thank you so much, Diane. And you guys, you can find Diane again on, tell me again, Facebook is
Diane Passey, my website, and any podcast platform, the ADHD Parenting Circle.
Awesome. No, that's great. And if people want to sign up to get coaching by you,
Mhm.
where's the best place that they can go to reach out to you for that?
That's on my website.
Okay.
Social media always links, we have links to that as well. But on my website, dianepassey.com, up on the upper right-hand side, there's a free link for a free call, and you can claim that call, and we can talk about, whatever it is that you're struggling with, and I'm happy to give you like a tool or a tip or something that will help you be able to experiment and kind of move forward. So I'd love to connect.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Diane. And thanks for joining us on this week's Women Warrior Workshop. We are so thankful Diane could join us and teach us how to move from anxious perfectionism to authentic peace. So thanks, Diane. Join us next week. I can't remember who's presenting next week, but I will put that up on social media so you'll know.
Look at you're being a B- already, Tamara.
There
Way to
you go.
go.
I'm
Way
like,
to
I
go.
can't even think right now.
It's all
I've
good.
been so
It's all good.
focused on your presentation. I'm like, I don't remember who's presenting next
It's
week.
good. It's good. All right.
Thanks, guys. Have
You
a great
bet.
day.